Well, could South Africa's nuclear deal with Russia be the country's next arms deal scandal? Depending on the headlines, you believe it already is. This is Tonight. I'm Bruce Whitfield. To find out, I'm joined by Dr Kelvin Kemm, who is the Chief Executive of Nuclear Africa, and Chris Yelland from EE Publishers. Lots of noise, lots of excitement, lots of emotion, lots of hype. What exactly have we agreed to with the Russians, if anything, Chris Yelland?
Well, we don't know, because the head of NEXA, chairman of NEXA, who was in Russia with the minister signing the deal, has come out publicly to say they're not going to let us know. And I believe the nuclear industry and our Department of Energy and NEXA are doing the nuclear industry a great disservice and great harm. And it's very disturbing to be told that we're not going to be allowed to know these things.
But there also have been other nuclear type deals signed, not only with the Russians, but with the French as well. Do we know what's in there?
No, we don't. And this is the way the nuclear industry conducts itself.
Is it a nuclear industry issue or is it a government issue?
Both. This is big business and big government, engaging, and it's very disturbing. It's against the Constitution. It's against the Public Management Finance Act to engage in a procurement process that is secretive and conducted behind closed doors and hasn't followed due process.
Okay, Kelvin, then let us speculate. What do we think has been agreed? Because we know we need energy. We need energy in a hurry. We need it quickly, cleanly, and efficiently. You would naturally be a big proponent of nuclear energy, but not nuclear energy at any cost, I suspect.
Oh, absolutely. I think nuclear energy is the right way to go, but because it's the right way to go, not just because I'm biased. Now, I think what was in this particular agreement was a technology exchange agreement, because I've been party to others and that I've witnessed others being signed. So this is not a unique one at this stage. I haven't seen what's in it, but what I would imagine is in it is that a deal whereby they say, let's help each other out, because nuclear's got to become a global thing. It's so big, you don't want individual countries trying to go it alone. Also, what's happened is that our government for some time now said it's essential that we go for a large amount of localization. In fact, a target of 50% has been set. One compliment to the Russians is that they've said, oh, they're happy with 60%. They're not trying not to do it. So the idea would be that we want to set up local fabrication in South Africa, which means that we need to talk to them and they need to talk to us, and we must talk to other people and other companies and other countries as well. It's not just a two-sided thing. And the idea being, let's see what we can do to mutually come up with products that we can export.
But we can only do that if information is shared.
Yes.
Can I say the key word that you mentioned, Kelvin, is I imagine. And really, this is not how it should be. We should not be speculating and imagining. We have to listen to what was said.
Yeah. Well, I think
and in fact, two things were said that were in direct contradiction. First, a press release comes out to say
from the Russians,
from the Russians, yes, which was promptly retransmitted, regurgitated word for word by our own Department of Energy, saying categorically in plain English that apart from the construction of 8 Russian VVR nuclear reactors, in addition to that, we have concluded agreement about a wide-ranging range of nuclear technologies. That came out on Monday last week. And the next day, of course, the Department of Energy promptly contradicted themselves and said, no, this was just a general nuclear cooperation agreement. What on earth is going on?
Okay, so we don't really know what is going on. Well, what we do know is we need energy. Now,
absolutely.
Nuclear being, and we will have lots of people throwing, I don't know, biodegradable things at their televisions because they're terrified of nuclear. We've had nuclear generating power in South Africa for the last 30 years at Koeberg.
30 years this year, actually.
Who built Koeberg?
Well, Koeberg was built by the French company at the time, but with quite a lot of South African involvement. And the important thing now is we need more of that.
Do we have those skills? I mean, are the people who built Koeberg still around and still capable of doing it?
Yes, we have all the skills in the sense that there's nothing in the entire chain that is a black hole to us. We know sort of everything, so to speak. Sometimes there's accusations from foreign countries saying, oh, you only Africans, you don't know this, you've bitten off more than you can chew, you don't understand. That's not true. We do understand. We don't have enough people. We need to make thousands and thousands of more artisans available up to the right standards, which means they've got to be to international nuclear grade standards. So there's a huge challenge ahead of us. We've also got to get into export, I mentioned to you, because we've got to hold out a carrot to local industry to get involved. And the carrot for building 8 or 9 reactors is not enough. The carrot has got to be seen to be the 75 odd reactors currently under construction worldwide and the 440 operating reactors worldwide. In other words, about a 500 reactor market for new and refurbished and maintenance and so on and so forth. So we need to induce local companies to get excited to get into that business, to get through the nuclear quality assurance path that's required to get the international verifications. And that is where working with Russians and others is beneficial to both parties. They seem happy to come here to build things here, and we're only too happy to do that.
Now, the process of secrecy around this thing, Chris Yelland, we seem to have had a very successful renewables process, and people have done very well, and we've got half the Karoo is got wind turbines and solar panels stretched across it. Finally, a good use, other than a couple of sheep in the Karoo. But here, so that's worked really well. Why is the nukes industry?
Well, we really
so
looked to the nuclear industry to see what has worked and to see what their obligations are in South Africa. The renewable energy sector, by engaging with the Department of Energy and its private sector, legal, engineering, accounting, financial partners, put together a process that was open, transparent, fair, competitive, and all the things that the Constitution requires.
Yeah.
And that's what we look to the nuclear industry for. But the nuclear industry is behaving as it should not behave. It is behaving in a way that we see the problems with Rosatom, and I'm not saying that this is a Russian problem. We see the same secretive problems taking place with Westinghouse and Areva and Eskom. This whole sector should take a leaf out of the renewable energy sector. I'm not saying that they should follow a bidding process exactly the same as that process, but they should look to see what works and what the Constitution requires of them.
It does your industry no justice, does it, Kelvin?
No, you're right, Bruce. Now, the secrecy thing is actually not true. For years now there's been accusations about the whole nuclear thing as secret. It's not, but I must admit that a lot of information has not got out. Much of it is just plain simply lack of skill. People don't quite know how to speak to the public. They don't know what to say, so they tend to keep their mouths shut. Then there's accusations that this is all intentional, and it's not. I can assure you that the nuclear industry is wanting to talk about itself and get things out. I totally agree with Chris that there mustn't be perceived secrecy and double dealing and so on. It must be open. But nuclear is a big exercise. This is a major decision. The decisions taken now are like a fork in the road, and you're deciding your future. You're talking about 100 years into the future. It's not a simple decision. With respect to the wind and the solar, what Chris says is right, but we must remember that currently wind is being produced for about 3 times the price that it's being resold for. It's horrendously expensive. It's done largely as a political plug because you're trying to reduce CO2 and so on. It hasn't been calculated to be the most efficient way of producing power. It's completely different to the nuclear now, which a big nuclear power station will give you electricity to drive an electric train from Johannesburg to Cape Town. A wind turbine or a solar panel won't. So it's a different ball game, but I'm totally behind the argument that this must be seen to be done with South Africa's professionals. We've got the professionals. We've got people who know what they're talking about. We've got years of experience. We're internationally well respected. Koeberg is 30 years old this year and is recognized as being one of the best run reactors in the world.
Forgive me for making a statement that I may regret, but I stand open to correction. Do we blow PBMR, pebble bed modular reactors, which are now, as I understand it, being utilized in China very effectively? Did we blow it?
Yes, we did. In the sense that we shouldn't have
stopped.
Good
blanket statement.
Yeah,
good
no,
blanket
we did.
statement.
We shouldn't have stopped. As far as I'm concerned, we were way ahead of the world. We were the world leaders. But there again, the public didn't know enough. It was too quiet. It wasn't understood. I would do a little bit of a pub question at times and say to people, how many staff work on the pebble bed reactor? And people would say 20, 40, 60. The brave ones would say 100, 150. The right answer was 2,000. We had 2,000 people working on this thing. It was very inexpensive. It cost us $9.5 billion over 10 years. We spent $12.3 billion on the soccer stadiums over 3 years. So one must get this sort of thing into context. So what we did is we opened the way for the rest of the world. We showed what could be done. We then stepped out of the racetrack, and other people are now going past.
Chris Yelland?
Yeah, I must disagree. I was at a lecture by Dr. Rob Adam, former CEO of the Nuclear Energy Corporation of South Africa, at the SANEA lecture. That's the South African Nuclear Energy Association, where he really got frank with the audience, and he told the audience that the engineering and the scientific community in South Africa had oversold their capabilities and this whole dream to the politicians, Alec Irwin at the time, who took it up with vigor and believed it, and eventually left disillusioned.
Yeah.
The reality was that he said that South Africa could not put it together.
So do we not run the risk of going down the same path again?
And follow this dream of
Yeah.
becoming a nuclear contractor to the world market, licensing the technology throughout the world, becoming the player of small nuclear reactors? He said, Dr. Rob Adams said, that it was oversold and eventually could not be delivered upon.
So do we not run the risk of doing it all over again? Russian technology, South African partners, 60% South Africa, blah, blah, fish-based. Are we overselling again?
I think we have to follow a very open, clear procurement process.
Are we at risk
Do
of
not
overselling it again?
believe the sales pitch of the Russians or the French or the Americans
Or the South Africans' capacity to deliver.
in isolation. One's got to engage in a proper process to analyze these offerings. It's easy to talk the talk and give a sales pitch. You've got a lot of resources, money to do just this.
The ship has sailed, though. We're on a path.
Yes.
The documents are signed, whether we like the way it was done or not. The deal is done. We're on a path.
Have we done a deal?
No, we
because the
haven't done a
government
deal.
says they haven't done a
No,
deal, but the previous press release said they have done a deal.
No, look, there's no deal, is my understanding of this. The deal
You
is...
imagine.
the
You
deal
imagine.
is- yeah, nevertheless, I'm pretty much certain. The deal is we will do a cooperation with them, which is to be welcomed, as we would do a cooperation with others. We still need to make the decision exactly which technology to go along with. However, that does not stop our people from starting to manufacture for export now. We can make valves and pumps and all sorts of things to nuclear standard now, and we can start exporting them into the market. We don't have to wait for our reactors to get going. Now, let me just for a moment come back to Pebble Bed. I think we should have built it. I think we should have done it. Bear in mind, Pebble Bed size reactors are 100 megawatts. Coburg size reactors are 2,000, much bigger. So when we talk about Pebble Bed size reactors, we talk about populating all over Africa. This is the solution. Africa is too dependent on hydro, which depends on whether it rains or not. We've got to find some other solution.
The Chinese are using pebble bed modular
Yes.
reactors. Should we be using that, bringing it back in again?
We've got to look at something. We can there's in fact a group in South Africa, a private group that is looking to build a pebble bed here, and there's currently people in the United States essentially building our pebble bed now in the US. Most of our material went there.
Isn't the problem that we don't want it in our backyards? It's very nice to have a nuclear power station, put it in the middle of the Karoo where it doesn't affect anybody. Pebble bed modular reactor, it sounds like it has to be in my backyard. Ooh, people
That's
get all...
fine. The pebble bed modular reactor would fit on a rugby field, and its safety zone was 400 meters, as against the Coburg zone, which is declared at 16 kilometers. So you actually could want to have one in your backyard and be just fine. You know, so this is why the point is the public must be told what's going on and words they can understand. Otherwise, they get scared.
Completely. But thank you for explaining it in plain, simple English this evening. Dr. Kelvin Kemm, Chief Executive of Nuclear Africa, and Chris Yelland from EE Publishers, trying to get beneath the skin of what is really going on with South Africa's apparent nuclear deal. Thanks for watching. There'll be more tonight, tomorrow. Until then, good night and goodbye.